And not just to be defending Egypt, but the borders of Egypt. One of them bordering countries is Palestine and the Gaza Strip, as we did see the 228th aid convoy of Egypt to Gaza, from Egypt to Gaza, had reached the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip for today. In your opinion, how do you see the conflict in the Gaza Strip? It managed to be reshaping the Arab diplomatic priorities for the past 2 years.
Well, before I answer your question, I forgot a point that you mentioned in your last question, which is about the octagon, about the whole region.
Yes.
Throughout history, Egypt was the dam that managed to stop any aggression towards the region, not just towards Egypt, but towards all of the Middle East. And I don't need to state examples, but we all know that Egypt was the only power capable of doing this. And that's why we have to have this octagon, why we have to have a trained, armed, and well-educated army in order to be able, because the wars of tomorrow are different from the wars of yesterday and the day before. So now we have to be technologically ready to fight the wars that are coming, not just for the sake of Egypt, but for the sake of the whole region. And I think that Egypt as a military power in the region, and you can look around it, is one of the strongest in the region. And that's why everybody is counting on Egypt, not just for Egypt's security, but for the whole region's security. Yes. When it comes to the question regarding Gaza, Gaza is the root cause of all the disasters that's happening in the area. I mean, if we are looking at Iran and all the proxies of Iran, they are all coming to, in a way or another, whether we are convinced or not, but it's in the name of defending Palestine. And Palestine needs to be defended. Unfortunately, Iran is the only one capable of saying, yes, I am helping the Palestinians, and I will help them by trying even to arm them if I can. And this is the only country that have said this, although that, according to the UN Charter, we are all supposed to be helping the Palestinians to arm themselves and to defend themselves from the aggression.
Yes.
Right now, over 60% of the Gaza Strip is occupied by Israel, and I won't be surprised to hear soon that they will start building settlements in those areas that they are occupying. And we are all hearing about what's happening in the West Bank. They are trying more and more to add new settlement in order to close totally the possibility and to kill totally the possibility of the two-state solution. It's not a secret. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was actually bragging that throughout his reign as the Prime Minister of Israel, he managed to stop and to kill the idea of the two-state solution. And it will never happen on my watch. And even now more after the 7th of October. So although we didn't need the 7th of October, I mean, Israel was never intended to contemplate the two-state solution or to look at it in a serious way. Yes. They will never do unless they are forced to. And here comes now the new changes that we are seeing in the West in general and specifically in the United States. Those changes, maybe not on the short term, since Israel so far managed to buy many American politicians. And let's say it, I mean, now we can talk freely about these things because actually everybody is talking about it in the United States, that Israel, through AIPAC and through other Jewish lobby, are buying American politicians for the well-being of Israel. And if this is now, it's starting to become not so popular among the population. We've seen many people who are actually angry with their congressmen and congresswomen and with their senators, asking them, did you accept money from AIPAC and so on? Well, because they understand that the minute any politician accepts money from any Jewish lobby, that means that he is going to lobby for Israel and not for the United States. Yes. That's why they are having problem even with the logo that President Trump himself started, which is MAGA, Make America Great Again. How do you expect to make America great again if you are privileging the well-being of Israel over the well-being of the American people?
Yes.
And this is actually reformulating and reshaping the United States now. We've seen how in the preliminary election, how that many people who are against Israel are winning. Israel had to spend over $30 million for one candidate to make him lose because he was against Israel. So the idea is that the American public is becoming more and more aware of the negativity of giving too much importance to Israel into the American policy. And I think step by step this is going to shift, as we have seen it shift in Europe as well. And we are going to see a different policy where Israel is not going to be turned down, but at least is going to be treated like any other country should be treated. And if you are committing any war crimes, you will be treated accordingly. And this is the new thing that is happening in the West right now. And I think that we have to seize the opportunity to work on this more and to open more the public of the reality of the situation in the Middle East and the justice that we are acquiring here.
Different policies in the United States towards what is happening in Palestine. But on the ground, what about the implementation of the second phase of the ceasefire plan or the agreement that took place here in Sharm el-Sheikh? What are the main challenges facing them?
Well, it's just one challenge, Israel. Israel doesn't want to apply the second phase. And if you remember on this platform, when it was called the Daily Debate, before you changed to Nile Oracle, we said this clearly. We said that Israel never had the intention of applying phase 2. And phase 1 is phase last, simply because Israel wants to get its hostages and the body of those who were killed. And once they get this, and we mentioned this here, we are going to see the real Israel, and that's what we are seeing right now. Israel doesn't want to implement phase 2 because this implicates that Israel have to withdraw. Of course, there is always the alibi that, and the reason why they don't want to do it is that we have to disarm Hamas. And this is impossible. Hamas, although they have very symbolic arms now, they have been, between brackets, I mean, military defeated by Israel. I mean, this is a fact after killing over 80,000 Palestinians and wounding double of this number. Yes, they have been defeated, but the symbolism that carries the weapons of Hamas is quite important because this is a nation in a struggle to self-determination. And if they cannot have self-determination, then they cannot just give their arms away.
And we always see also the statements of Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulhati and the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi about the future, what is happening next, the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip. How do you see the importance of always highlighting this important futuristic event that should be taking place in the Gaza Strip as soon as possible for the benefit of the Palestinians, as we did see even the Palestinians on the streets of the Gaza Strip supporting the Egyptian football national team with everything on the streets destroyed?
Well, let me tell you something. I mean, the Palestinians are very resilient people, and the history have shown us since 1948 how resilient they are. They are still trying to grasp the last centimeter of their land. The land that we all know is theirs, which is the one of the 4th of June 1967 with East Jerusalem as capital. Israel does not want to accept that, does not tolerate it, and is trying to steal, and I mean the word steal, as much land as it can from the Palestinian land. And not just the Palestinian land, they are also doing the same thing in Lebanon, they are doing the same thing in Syria, they are trying to do the same thing even with Iraq and so on. They are trying to take as much land as they can because this is an expansionist country. This is a country that until today doesn't want to acknowledge where are its borders. And that's why I'm really astonished with the question always asked in the Western media. When they ask any pro-Palestinian person on TV, do you accept the right of Israel to exist? Exist where? Where are these borders that Israel should? Yes, I do accept the right of Israel to exist, but where? You have to tell me where exactly, from which point to which point. And Israel, first of all, has to acknowledge where are its territories. The idea of security so that you can take as much land as you can simply to secure yourself, this is not working, and this cannot be the norm in an era where we should be living by the respect of the international law. But since when Israel respects the international law? They do not. They have a fight. We've seen the ambassador of Israel quarreling with the responsible of the United Nations and fighting with them. We've seen the representative of Israel, the prior one, shredding the UN Charter, and this was passed without any consequence, because until today they're still profiting from the American veto and the American protection diplomatically and politically. So until the United States start to treat Israel like any other nation who respects the international law or disrespect the international law, then Israel will continue to do what it's doing, simply because nobody is deterring it. Why should it?
And it continues to do so in Syria as well. What is the significance of Syria being reinstated, re-engaging within the Arab political picture?
Well, Syria is in a very difficult position. Syria, the army, as we have seen in few days, maybe few hours actually, the whole army of Syria was totally destructed, its air force, its air defenses, everything. So the skies in Syria are open for Israel to do whatever it wants. And accordingly, they are like walking on eggs. I mean, how to find a place for themselves and not to provoke Israel and at the same time to keep their land. The situation is very bad there. But of course, embracing Syria gives Syria a certain depth into its world relation with the rest of the world. How can it interact with the rest of the world? And I think it's quite important for us to try to absorb Syria and help it. I mean, we cannot much actually, it all depends on the Syrian. But the idea is not to leave Syria alone in face-to-face with Israel, is that at least politically and diplomatically it enjoys a certain coverage from the rest of the world who understand what is Syria and where are the borders of Syria. But as we know, the idea was never about the Arab countries who are surrounding Israel. The idea was always about Israel, who wants to expand its borders. I mean, give me any other reason why Israel doesn't want to acknowledge where its borders are, simply because it wants to take more and more land as long as nobody is stopping it. And this is the main point. We have to seek all diplomatic solution in order to convince the United States to stop Israel from disturbing the peace in the area. It's Israel that is disturbing the peace. I'm sure that all the Arab countries and the non-Arab countries of the region, of the Middle East, will not be having this. Iran would not need proxies if there is no Palestinian cause. There is no need for Hamas if there is no liberation of land that is needed. And I think that one of the most important things that we have to accept now is that Israel is the one behind the scenes shaping or helping negatively to shape the new Middle East.
Yes, and speaking of the Middle East, and just neighboring to Syria is Lebanon, which is facing political and economic challenges, as you mentioned, with the presence of Israel in the south of Lebanon and the whole conflict taking place with one of the proxies of Iran, Hezbollah, and not agreeing on the agreement of ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, the Lebanese institutions or the Lebanese state, that took place in Washington with the sponsorship of the American President Donald Trump. How do you see the importance of the security of Lebanon on the political and the economic levels for the collective security of the Middle East and the Arab world?
Well, Lebanon is a pure example of how a country that is weak economically and militarily is forced to sign agreements that they have to hide even from their own people, simply because it contains some conditions that no one would believe that the government accepted. But they had to accept it to spare the lives of their citizens. They were forced to accept it. And now that some of them were revealed, unfortunately, by the Israelis, And it shows certain conditions like that Israel maintained the right to supervise, between brackets, I mean, supervise the Lebanese army about disarming Hezbollah. And they know that they cannot disarm Hezbollah. The problem is that, and we've said this before, that Hezbollah, the weak Hezbollah that is currently in the region, is helping Israel more than it's helping Lebanon, unfortunately, simply because it's weakened after what we know as the Pager battle, where they killed many operatives of Hezbollah, and after many concentrated attacks on the quarters of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is becoming much weaker, but even a few hundreds is enough for Israel to continue its policy. And we have always to differentiate between the slogans that are used and the reality of things. The slogan that Israel is using is that we have to defend ourselves because we're being attacked from Iran's proxy. But what the reality is, the reality that we have to seize more land, and that's what they are doing. Even with Iran, when they insisted, and they actually kind of dragged President Trump to start the war with Iran. And Iran did not have a nuclear weapon, and everybody knew that. So the idea was that Iran, no, we want to weaken Iran so that we can attack all the proxies of Iran who are supposed to defend their territories there, and also the Palestinian cause, so that we can expand. And we can see this right before our eyes. How around 20% of Lebanon, something similar in Syria, and not to mention 60% of Gaza Strip, and almost all of the West Bank, and this is what Israel is doing. So on the land, although Israel is a pariah state, and everybody is looking at Israel in a bad way right now, but Israel is winning, and I'm sorry to say it. I mean, if you manage until today without any deterrence to seize lands, and that you don't want to leave those lands, I mean, whether we're talking about Lebanon, about Syria, about Gaza, about the West Bank, well, on land you are achieving, you are winning.
But this means that dialogue and diplomacy for those states, they are not enough for deterrence.
Definitely not. Israel do not accept this, or it would have accepted long ago. I mean, we have since 2000 the Saudi and then the Arab Peace Initiative, which is actually about the same thing we're talking about right now, land for peace. Israel doesn't want to give the land. And what Israel is talking about, and it has always said it, and as you know, I served personally in Israel, is peace for peace. That's what they want to achieve, which is, we'll give you peace, you'll give us peace, but we'll keep the land. And this is the main idea of Israel, is to continue to seize lands, more and more lands, and always to take the alibi of that we need to secure our northern borders, our western borders, our eastern, and by this they acquire more and more land until they achieve the greater Israel as they are dreaming of. And Egypt is here, and it's staying here, and it's not going to allow this to happen.
This leads us to the model of Egypt that we have begun the episode with. The diplomacy that we have seen being conducted by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, by Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdel Ati. On the other hand, the achievement that we have had for the past couple of days, the new state strategic command, the Octagon, the headquarters in the new capital, this and that. It's not this or that.
Yes,
what is the importance of the Egyptian model that we have seen being implemented by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and after the June 30th revolution to be propagated and implemented in other Arab states?
Well, let me say first of all that I have to give the credit to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who from day one said no to the Palestinian displacement. And this was a key point. Palestinians are still in Palestine. They're squeezing them more and more into smaller parts of their own land, but they are still on their land, and they are not leaving. When you see that the Palestinians are watching the football games on large screens, and they are trying, although this suffering, the atrocities they are living in, and they are still they're still having hope to see what the world is looking at, and to encourage the Egyptians and to encourage the dreams that they like and so on. Those people have the will of living. They have a will. They have a strong will to stay where they are. I remember seeing this beautiful young girl who is congratulating the Egyptian people. I think that those pictures, those images that we've seen were the one that compelled Captain Hussam Hassan to hold the Palestinian flag and to dedicate the win, not just for the Egyptian people, but for the Palestinian people who endured a lot. And this shows a simple Egyptian feeling from an Egyptian citizen about how do we feel about the Palestinian and the atrocities that they have been submitted to. And now that we are talking about President Sisi, yes, President Sisi was the first one to understand how dangerous if he would accept the displacement of Palestinians. It would simply mean the liquidation of the Palestinian cause. And beside this, he understood that this position might get him in quarrel with Israel. And that's why he said, no, I have also to fortify my country, to make sure that I am not an easy prey for anyone who has an illusion of attacking the country. This is a kind of deterrence, that don't think that Egypt is sleeping or Egypt is not aware of what you're thinking. No, we are here, we are careful, we don't want to attack anyone, but we will not allow anyone to attack us or to provoke us into a war. And this is, I think, this is the most important thing, that we are strong, but we will not fall into any provocation to drag us into a war that is not ours.
Mr. Ambassador, speaking about the Arab political coordination, do you think it could be reducing the external interference in the future if it happens?
Well, let me tell you something. I mean, when you have a strong Arab nation, this scares the enemy of the Arab world. It goes without saying.
Yes.
The idea is that one of the discoveries, as we mentioned before, and we have to face the realities so that we wouldn't fall into a certain illusion, is that not all the Arabs are on the same page, and not all the Arab priority are the same for each and every country. That's why actually I do not envy at all His Excellency, the new Arab League Secretary General, about, of course, yes, Mr. Nabil Fahmy, about his new job. Because actually he is in an era where there are different points of view, where you need to unify the Arab League in order to be able to achieve something, because we will never achieve something if we are so weak. Remember, when we are weak, when you even call for a summit, you find all the Arab leaders here. When we are dispersed, when you call for a summit, you don't get the Arab leaders. You get the second, maybe the third responsible in the state. And this shows how we could be weak and how we could be strong. And I think this is the most important thing right now, is to try to unify ourselves. Unfortunately, not all the Arab leaders think the same way, and that's why when I start talking to you, if you remember before the last report, when I said that we need a new coalition between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, because those are two mind-like who think the same way. And if we are thinking the same way and we are that strong and capable, we can drag other countries to join us and to become a power in the region, a power to deter others from continuing their thug work, like Israel, what it's doing, whether we're talking about Lebanon or Syria or anywhere else, especially, of course, in Palestine and Gaza.
What can be done differently by the new Secretary General of the Arab League, Nabil Fahmy, Ambassador Nabil Fahmy, who was the Egyptian former top diplomat, the Egyptian former foreign minister, in assistance from Egypt, from Dr. Badr Abdulati, the current Egyptian foreign minister, to be unifying the Arab world?
Well, first of all, Mr. Nabil Fahmy is a really seasoned diplomat. I mean, he worked everywhere, and he knows his interior kitchen, how it works.
Yes.
And he knows that in order to be able to have a strong Arab League as an institution, he needs to gather all the Arabs on one word. And that's what I think is going to be his plan for the near future, is to try to get the minimum acceptance by all Arab nations in order to have a common political vision and a common political prospect to the future. And without this, it will be a weak organization, and it will, because at the end of the day we have to be clear about something. The Arab League is the sum of the powers of, and not just the powers, actually the willingness of the Arab countries that are members of this league. So if those Arab countries are not on the same page, then we are not going to be strong enough to be able to dictate to our enemies, because we have enemies in the region, to dictate to our enemies how they should behave in the presence of the Arab countries. And this is, I think, what he's going to do as a first step in order to be a Secretary General of a really strong organization.
And this is our first episode together on Nile Oracle. Such a success. It was a very good having you here, Ambassador Medhat Al-Meligy, the former Assistant Foreign Minister and the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, and congratulations once again to Nile TV International. I have always been a regular guest here, and I'm really proud to be with you tonight, especially that I will cherish that I was on the second episode ever of Nile Oracle.
Thank you very much. We'll be having a quick break. Stay tuned.